We are on the second episode of the Aircast today. I'm Keith, and I'm once again joined by Justin.
Yep.
And Al.
Hey, Mac. Hey, Mac. Mac Cannon. Mac Daddy. Mac Papa. Anyway, we're going to start off this podcast today because I will read through some of these cards, which I thought were garbage trash, and I would never have done them before. But now I'm thinking I might turn a new leaf.
Okay. On a little bit of a tangent for Magic, and so we're going to talk about...
what is it? Unstable? Unset?
Yes, unset and silver bordered cards in Magic. He came in thinking that they were garbage trash like I do.
I know. Okay.
And he now thinks that somehow they're good and
no.
thing to draft.
Okay. All right.
I said a decent thing to draft. I did not say anything about financial value.
Thank you. However, there are some cards that are iconic jokes, like I believe, what is it, Mox Lotus, which is just hilarious, and
also,
Urza. I feel like those cards are collectible because, that's just Wizards of the Coast making fun of them.
Have you heard of Big Furry Monster?
Oh, yeah, Big Furry Monster, that's another one.
You want to know this is probably part of the reason why I hate unsets. My first game of Magic that my uncle taught me, he gave me a basic Goblin deck, and he played with a mono black deck with Big Furry Monster and an Infinite Life combo.
Okay.
Against an 8-year-old Goblin deck.
See, that's what you don't ever want to do with unsets. You don't actually want to play them in any constructed, or I don't like them in tabletops or anything, but what I really think would be actually kind of cool is what they were intended for, and that's just drafting and having fun.
So, for everybody listening, Justin bought 3,000 Magic cards, an entire box full, for $100. A couple boxes full, and he brought the entire thing over, and we were just looking through them, and they found all these, what the heck do you call them? The unsets?
The silver bordered unsets.
Yeah, the silver bordered unsets, and so now they're having a debate about if they should even have been printed in the first place.
And whether they're just fire kindling or if they're worth dealing with.
Well, I'm not going to lie with you. We are in agreement with that when it comes to the value of the cards afterwards. I think they're kind of a little bit cheesy when it comes to the jokes. Not all of them hit. Some of them are iconic, like the Stormcrow card, where it's just like, it has a mechanic of storm and it just creates Stormcrows. Those are kind of fun jokes, at first. But after that, I don't want them sitting wasting space in my collection. And the lands are always great. The last set that they made, the
only financial value in the unsets are the lands.
And some cards like, I think Urza and I think if Keith could actually hook up Mox Lotus and Urza, we might actually see if there's some actual value in those and keeping some of those cards. Which, I'm not going to say is the reason why you should do these. Really, the reason why you should do an unset is because the mechanics themselves can be goofy, and you put that into a draft or any sealed thing, you could, come up with some funny...
but the question being,
you gotta look at TCG Player.
Holy moly, dude!
Yeah, you gotta go to an actual market.
Well, I was just looking at the card. My goodness!
Oh, I'll show you the card there too.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, see.
Lightly played at values right now at $11.34.
See, that's not bad.
I'm not saying that
the chances that you'll get that card are pretty low.
Yeah.
But
however.
Actually, go to the whole set. Excuse me, sorry about that. No. Up. Unhinged. Click Unhinged underneath. No. Look at where it says Mox Lotus. Yeah. It says Unhinged. Then go to Sort Products By.
Okay.
Price. High to low. Yeah, see, the foil Mox Lotus is it looks like it's the alternate foil is about $260.
I'm not saying that the older unsets don't have some valuable cards in it, because they do. However, that's because not many people picked them up and not many people bought them.
Right, it's a pretty niche thing.
And I feel like if I'm gonna spend $100 on a set to draft or a booster box, these are not gonna be what I want, because I want to have a chance at getting something for my constructed decks.
Okay, all right, hold on. I'm gonna stop you there. So the unhinged is just one thing. So you see it's unhinged. Unhinged is about $22 per booster pack, which is not far off from any older like Innistrad or Zendikar, which obviously you would want to keep the cards with those because you're getting powerful, valuable cards. Now if you go to the search box and you look Unstable, which I believe is the second,
it's the newest one.
No, I think.
You can
Unstable was the second to newest one. There was another one.
Okay.
These ones are, how much is a pack? Like a regular booster pack. That's the booster draft pack. The draft
pack is
The draft pack is $40. Keep going down. Go down. Unstable
The problem is with Unstable was it had literally some of the best art lands.
Ooh, no. Ooh, and Urza. Okay, Urza's like $2.
So a booster pack looks like it runs for about $7.
Yeah.
$6.93.
Okay, yeah.
I would rather get new Phyrexia packs, which are slightly cheaper than that.
New Phyrexia packs are slightly cheaper than $7.
Yeah.
Bro, what's going on with new Phyrexia? It's probably because they had all the bannings. But anyway, to give a little insight on what we're talking about with the silvers, because did we explain that?
No. You guys just started talking right about it. That's why I had to stop you and explain what we were even talking about.
So when it comes to the silver bordered cards, the unsets, they're unsets. These are cards that aren't legal in any Wizards of the Coast sanctioned formats.
So you can only play realistically as a draft with these cards and with your friends. So any kind of money investment is kind of irrelevant because it's going to be, there's not going to be a ton of people who are going to want these.
Well,
and on top of that, you can't use them unless your friends let you use them, and that's pretty hard.
Alright, so I see what you're saying there, that you're not going to be taking any of these uncards and putting them into any tabletops or just fun games. But what you can do with these is, as far as it goes to just what do you do with these cards after the draft, you can take all of the cards from these, you can put them into a cube, actually, and you can redraft those packs kind of like that. You can take these cards and you can just put them into a box and then you can just try and draft them over again. The only problem with that is if you're a person like me, a Johnny, that likes playing the game for playing the game, it can get a little old after a while, so you don't want to necessarily do that. But number two is not every player takes Magic cards and just tries to collect them for the value of the cards. And
no, but
also,
I would collect them for playability's sake, and because they're illegal in every format, I can't do that.
Right, so the whole point of these cards is literally just to have fun and be like, hey, I got some cool cards we can look at. They're not really to use. They're literally just for collecting.
Exactly.
They'd be like, I got something cool.
They're for playing that one set, or that one time.
Yeah.
Well, sure.
And then you have to be creative with them, like I said, where you have to do the cube, or you guys can make constructed decks with just unstable cards, which I'm not going to be making a constructed deck with unset cards.
Right, that's what I mean.
Neither will I, and neither will most players or most people who want to play.
But there's a lot of players that are sticks and buns that you don't want to play with anyway, so ha.
But my point, the whole point of this discussion is it a viable product, something that a general populace is gonna want to keep and own. And I think the majority of the player base is not gonna be super interested in anything but the lands out of those sets.
Okay, so a couple things there is, yeah, a bunch of players aren't going to be the ones that are going to want this, but there are going to be a few players that will. So let's say if I just wanted to do a draft with this one time, that's going to be about $21 for $7 a pack with this particular unset, because I'm not going to go very far back. And then $21 to do a draft, which is going to be about 4 hours with metagame and actual playing and just having some fun. And then whatever else you want to do with those cards, which $21 right off the bat for these cards.
What's a double Masters draft cost?
A double Masters? These packs are about $16 a pop. That's going to be about $45.
Okay, so it's about half the cost of a double Masters draft.
Yep. Or it's about the same price as a new Phyrexian draft.
Yeah.
Which, or, maybe even a Tarkir draft.
Which would be a much more enjoyable play experience.
Not necessarily, because some people do enjoy, Okay, so there's a lot of people that have just been playing Magic for like 5 years or 2 years straight. And every once in a while, it's nice to kind of just shake it up a little bit and do something that's different. And that's what these really do provide. I mean, a lot of these cards are really unconventional. Like, so in regular Magic, you're going to do like a card that says it has flying. But in this one, it's going to be like, you're going to have fun, like, you have to keep your hand above the table and just hover it there. And if you do that, then your card will have flying. It's really wonky. They just mess with the game. They mess with the rules. They're all different. Like, there's a lot more.
But if you want to play like that, there are cards in Vintage and Legacy that do the same type of thing and aren't silver bordered.
I wouldn't, but I wouldn't want to play. I wouldn't want to play those.
But I'm just saying, like, that is a viable thing you can do in Vintage and Legacy with cards that aren't silver bordered, and if we're already talking about illegal cards.
By Vintage and Legacy, you mean old cards.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. When you say Vintage and Legacy, Core 21 is Vintage and Legacy. But what you're trying to say, you're talking about, like...
I'm talking about cards that have, like, ante on them, which, for anyone who's new to Magic, ante was an old and now outlawed mechanic where you actually had to kind of gamble with some of your cards, where if the opponent won, you lost those cards.
Yep.
Now it's illegal and outdated, and even if you play it in Legacy, that part of the card is not, not allowed.
Illegal.
It is illegal.
Illegal.
However, there are cards that have that kind of mechanic that also do things like, you look at like Clay Pigeon, where you have to throw it up in the air and catch it, and if you do, then it gets indestructible for the remainder of the turn. And, like, random things like that are fun, but still legal. I
guess, but not playable.
I mean, it depends on how you want to play.
Well, that's what we're talking about. I mean, my personal thing is every Magic player knows that they have chaff. When we're talking about just waste of space, like, yeah, all these silver border cards are waste of space, but so is, like, 94% of the cards that you're ever going to draft in anything. Even this Double Masters set, I'm going to take, out of the 15 cards that are in here, I'm going to use probably 3 or 4 of them. And the rest of them are just going to sit in my collection and do nothing unless I become creative and I want to do something with it, like make a low-tier cube, or I want to make some low-tier decks, tabletop
or
decks.
Pauper.
Yeah, and have some fun with it there. But the same thing for these cards is, if you find people that are different, that like creative games, so like, again, I like the game of Magic, so I like playing it with the rules. I think that Magic is a great game. But there are people that like how Wizards of the Coast kind of did this and did a little wonky spin-off, and they're just like, this is just different. It's Magic, but it's different, and it just vibes with them.
I feel like it was just a cash grab for useless cards. That's my take on it.
I mean, if you want to do a cash grab for useless cards, A, you don't need to print useless cards, and B, if you want a cash grab, you'll make Double Masters.
No, you'll make Walking Dead. The Walking Dead Secret Lair.
I mean, that's not a cash grab. In fact, it's probably worse off for Wizards of the Coast to bring in Walking Dead, because they probably had to make a deal that isn't going to get them more money, except for the fact that they have the characters from The Walking Dead on it.
Yeah.
There's going to be like 3 people that are going to like, oh man, I really want that card with Rick on it. It's like, I mean, personally, myself, I don't like it when they bring in other franchises like The Walking Dead. It was kind of neat when they brought in Godzilla. But then I saw that they had this Godzilla, then that Godzilla, then that Godzilla, and this Godzilla, and I was like, alright, there's too many Godzillas here. It was neat when they brought in King of the Monsters, but he's not even really, like, the Monsterverse isn't really vibing with the Magicverse.
Oh no. And that's what I hate about these, like, sellout sets. That annoys me to no end.
What do you mean by a sellout set, though?
I mean, anything like the Godzilla or the Walking Dead they're not in the Magic universe, and they're not even in any kind of creative space of the type of Magic universe that we would think of.
Right. But I mean, I wouldn't call it a sellout set, and I'm not gonna have any animosity towards Wizards of the Coast. I mean, it's their company. If they want to bring in Godzilla and have some fun with it, and some other people are gonna have some fun with that, that's all up to them. Kudos to Wizards for bringing that in, because some people are going to enjoy it a lot more than I'm going to enjoy it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was just my one thing. I was kind of just looking through some of these silver border cards, and I was going like, wow, this is actually kind of. I was just reading some of them. I'm like, all right, what is this? Unstable. Unstable kind of had less wonky mechanics than the rest of them, and I was like, all right, so I could actually see you playing this in a draft, because it's more close to it and it still has that fun wacky thing. And I was thinking maybe we could like draft it sometime if anybody was interested.
I'm not really, but that.
I don't know, if we get a few people together, it might be fun. Just try something else out, you know.
See?
But beyond that, I did get a few of the unstable cards in this collection, but beyond that, I got 4 revised whiteboard lightning bolts, which anyone who's a little bit, newer to Magic, whiteboard is the best. Just laying that out there.
You literally just said the entire internet.
I don't know.
I mean, if we had enough.
Those whiteboarders were the ones that I used to use all the time. Like, those are pretty much all the cards I used way back when were whiteboarded.
Old school Magic cards, I think, just look better in a lot of cases.
They definitely look older.
Yeah.
From like an art point of view, like they seem more. They look like they're from the 90s. I don't know.
They look elderly. Like, they look like something from the olden time, the old Magic, Like,
it is the old Magic. It is the more powerful Magic.
Right. I hate to like do the devil's advocate thing, which I'm not going to actually. I'm just. Some people really don't like whiteboarders because I think it triggers their OCD. Because you're playing with modern cards and like all the lands are black bordered, some of the cards are black bordered, and then there's like these few copies of white bordered cards, and they like freak out. They're just like, ah!
I think that's their problem.
Oh yeah, no, and it's hilarious. I love when I found out that people get irritated by white borders, because I'm a jerk. I realized that like I have to play white borders as much as possible. Like, just to do that. Because there's been some times when I've seen people grab white bordered cards and they take a black Sharpie and will fill it in.
Oh,
wow.
That's ruining a card right there.
But they're just like, I'm not going to play with this lightning bolt with white borders.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah, and I'm just like, bro. And then Jay like pulls me aside and goes like, "Hey man, some people just don't like it." I'm like,
and some people are just idiots because you don't mess with the white borders. Now,
I remember, like, because I used to play, all the cards back then used to have white borders.
Yeah.
Like, that's what, when we sat down years ago and you try to get back into playing Magic, I didn't like the aesthetic of the new cards. I was like,
the black borders.
yeah, I wasn't a fan, honestly. It took a while to get used to the fact that,
They definitely look different. They look better than silver. Tell you that.
yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Like, if you went back to white borders right now, I probably would agree with most people saying that white borders are an abomination because just the aesthetic of the new black border, it just looks more modern, more tight. But the old art really was complemented by the white border.
yeah, I think so. I think
Their
it,
artwork.
yeah, I think it
Yes.
did. I think they went together quite well.
But like, could you imagine this rambunctious mud or this disenchanted?
No, well, you couldn't, because if you imagine put that in a white border, it just all blends together now.
Exactly.
Right.
Or, well, these are white
But
cards. How about this
the-
protein home?
You still, like, look at the lighter color inside the black border. It's the black border is used as essentially an outline,
Yes.
and before it was the same way, except you were using a white outline. So you had a darker color inside. This one, the cards themselves are lighter, and the border's black.
But there's some lighter colored aesthetic cards that have white.
So here's my
Right,
opinion.
but like some of the blue ones, especially, like the
Here's
very
the
light blue
reason
colors.
Why the older white borders were better, and kind of going what Keith was saying, because the white was the border, the picture and the color of the actual card was darker. So then, whenever they did make a foil, it was so much clearer and crisper and was beautiful.
All right. I don't even think I've ever seen a white border with foil, which would probably look really dope, and I would enjoy that a lot. But this whole idea that all of the cards were darker so you could have a white border, no, there was a lot of white cards and artifact cards that had pretty washed out color schemes themselves, and it did blend with the white border, and you know they look fine just themselves. Like, it wasn't any of that. It was just the art was less digitized.
Right.
It was more. They just had
It
different.
was
art
real
styles.
ink, like,
Yeah, it was artists putting like ink to paper,
yeah.
you know, or paint to paper. And not to necessarily knock all of these computer graphics generated artworks that are coming out now. Although Theros, no. Don't ever do that again.
Yeah.
And I know you will, because apparently it's cheaper computer graphic generated art.
Oh, are they starting to do like the 3D CGI stuff for cards now?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, and it
It's awful.
and I don't know if it's necessarily the 3D CGI or just the artistic work, because like, I mean, some of those cards are just off. Like, dang, I don't think I have.
Well, it doesn't really matter. I wanted to get onto the flip lands because that was my main thing I wanted to talk about. Are you good to go on to that, Alvin?
Go ahead, I'm listening.
Okay, so recently, Wizards have printed the flip lands. Now, it seems like Alvin and Keith don't really know what these flip lands are.
Yeah, these are something new, right? This is a new thing.
It's a
Okay.
new thing. Okay, so Alvin knows about them, but I've realized how much of an issue they are after watching someone take a Martyr Proc deck. Martyr of Sands is the main card, and it's 1 white mana, 1/1, and for 1 generic mana you can sacrifice it and gain 3 times X life, where X is all of the white cards you reveal in your hand. Now, it's already a pretty powerful effect. However, now with the flip lands, you have your entire mana base, instead of being quote unquote colorless, lands, because all basic lands are technically colorless. Now,
What? Hold up.
yes, all basic lands are considered colorless.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And now the flip lands that not only have a spell on one side, but have mana on the other side as a basic land.
Are they basic?
Well, I think some of them are and some of them aren't.
I gotta research those two now. Damn it.
But my point being, because now they're lands that you can replace for your basics, and they're also considered white cards on the back.
I don't think you can replace the basic. Or you can. They're
You
not
can.
basics.
Well, they're not basics, but it replaces your mana base.
What is it, Zendikar Rising?
And therefore, this deck of Martyr Proc uses this effect to where they literally are playing with only 2 basic planes, and the rest of their lands, 25 of them, are both spells and planes, which lets Martyr of Sands get you up to 15 to 20 life on turn 2, which almost doubles your life total on turn 2. And the proc part of Martyr Proc is Proclamation of Rebirth, which lets you get back low mana cost cards from the graveyard back to the battlefield.
Okay, so
And
they're just regular lands and they flip. They're still colorless.
Yes. Well, no, they're not considered colorless. They're considered white or whatever color their spell counterpart is. But you can play them as lands.
Oh wait, I was looking at the lands that flip into lands. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the spell lands.
So
And
it lets you just get ungodly amounts of life
yes.
pretty consistently.
Which land
Yes.
does that?
I think there's 4 or 5 in the actual deck list. I would have to look them up. Marin Moon was the one who I watched pilot it.
Sorry. I knew that having lands that could flip and be used as spells and used as spells was gonna be something different to the
Yes.
to the game of Magic, but when I first saw that, I was just like, oh no, this is actually like a really cool thing because of the problem with some games go and they end up falling flat because sometimes games people lose them because they have too many lands in their hand. So like they
Yes.
just flood out and go like, well, I lost not because my deck was bad, not because I played bad, but I have 5 lands in my hand and I can't do anything with that, so I flooded out. Or
And
don't
I
have
understand
land.
that.
Uh-huh.
However, that has always just been part of Magic.
Yeah, it always has been. But
And
that
it
doesn't
gives
mean
a
it
lot of
always has-
variation.
That doesn't mean it always has to be.
Right. That doesn't mean that there
Right.
isn't room for improvement.
Exactly, and that's what
Now-
Magic is constantly doing, especially when they have competition like Pokemon on the rise right now, because Pokemon's looking like a pretty good game. I still haven't really looked to it, but all I know is it's gaining a lot of foothold, especially in the younger community. And some older people, some people are like hopping off of Magic and going into Pokemon, or not hopping off of Magic, but also doing Pokemon.
Well, and part of that goes to just reprints, accessibility, and just outright cost.
What does reprint accessibility have to do with it?
Because Pokemon cost significantly less to have a fully functional tournament-ready deck than Magic does.
Okay, so how much does a tournament-ready Pokemon deck cost in the budget?
Probably between like 100, 150.
That's absolutely no different than Magic.
Disagree.
Okay. Are you talking about a tournament Pokemon deck that you're going to win,
Yes.
like consistently?
Yes.
All right, maybe you can get that, but you can still get really functional decks that are really fun to play, and you can actually win a lot. with budget Magic decks too. $150 is
But
actually
those-
on the higher end of the budget decks.
On the higher end of the budget decks. However, once you get into modern, legacy, vintage, playing with the old cards that you started off playing with before, like even the most expensive Pokemon cards don't compare to some of the average cost Magic cards.
True, but you're still only talking about a couple of these Eternal formats that are really established with the older community that have all these cards. A lot of Magic is actually more into Standard and Pioneer, and yeah, Modern.
I highly disagree. The numbers that I've seen lately on tournaments, especially online and everything, a lot of people are migrating much more towards Eternal formats and leaving Pioneer and Standard.
Well, I mean, it comes in waves. Sometimes Standard's a little gross and people want to go to Modern. Because that's actually what happens for a lot of people is they get into Magic, they do Standard because those are the sets that are out. So they're like, oh yeah, these are cards I'm access to. Oh, all of my cards are Standard legal. Might as well make a Standard legal deck.
And then 3 months later, half your deck is
finish.
useless.
Let me finish. So they get into Standard, they can actually make a competitive deck, and they go like, oh wait, I like the competitive format, but then they don't want to change up. So they're like, all right,
It's not
here's Modern.
So here's the issue. You said they don't want to change up. It's not that they don't want to change up. It's that all of a sudden, all that money that they invested in a Standard deck is now worthless because of rotation, and then they realize, oh crap, it's a better investment for me to invest in a certain deck in an Eternal format that isn't going to change, and I only have to tweak around the edges, and I will never lose my value or lose my, cards.
Well, that's
out
a lie.
of those.
That's a lie because you will have your value flux with the format or flux.
Value flux is different than having half of your deck be unplayable. In the format.
That's why I've never liked Standard, to be honest with you. It just, I don't play enough. If I played more, if I played that deck for a solid 3 months and I was playing, every day or every other day that same deck, yeah, after 3 months I'd be like, all right, I'm ready for a new deck,
Yeah.
But in that 3 months, I'll play 3 games. And I'm like, I'm just getting warmed up to this deck. And then it's, I guess my deck is, I got to buy a new set because my set that I have in my deck's out, so that deck's not viable anymore. So now I got to come up with another one. Which, coming up with decks is part of the fun, but I could see why you'll always get those people who'll have a fun deck that they really enjoy in Standard. Then they'll migrate to Modern because they can still play that deck. But then there'll be people that come back. They're like, oh, they're reprinting, I don't know, Dark Ritual again in Standard. So I'm gonna make this cool black deck, and so then they go back into Standard and want to play that again because you don't have to compete with those very expensive Modern decks anymore.
However, when they do reprint something like that, it's bringing older players back into a Standard, but they also know that card that they're building around is going to be something that they can bring to the Eternal formats and will not lose value.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why he was saying earlier. I was like, it comes in waves. You'll get the people who are in Modern will come back to Standard when the certain cards get printed, and they'll play it in Standard for the 3 months, 6 months, however long.
Or the meta just feels healthy.
Yeah, or the Memphis, and then when it falls out of the Standard, they'll go back to Modern for a while. Then another set will get printed that they like, and they'll move back to Standard. It comes back and forth.
Yeah, and again, like when it comes to is this a viable thing that I have to do? Not everybody wants to go into Modern and just win Grand Prix and win GPs, yeah, thank you. Gosh, I couldn't think about it. Most people just want to go to F&M and probably win those local tournaments, which you can. You can really easily make a $50 deck in Modern, and you could go to a GP and you could win.
Maybe.
Or you could get
you could get completely destroyed.
Well, I mean, but that's with everybody. Like, I remember one time I went to an F&M with a $120 Rakdos deck, and I Wally stomped a $2,500 Jund deck.
Yeah, and those
Wally stomped, not a Wally stomped it.
Yeah, and those few times are great. Those few times are great, However, 9 times out of 10, the meta is already figured out.
No.
And
The meta was already figured out. John was top dog. I came in there with a Rakdos deck. It was like, I'm a little bit more killy than you. I'm gonna kill more things than you gonna kill. All right.
Okay.
And not only did I do that one time,
not
but I
saying
came
that-
back to that FNM on several occasions, and for a solid 2 to 3 months, I was winning FNMs. I was going like, "Ooh, I'm gonna win this
I'm not
time.
saying
Ooh,
that
I'm
there
gonna win
aren't
this
road
time.
decks.
Oh, I'm gonna get second place. Oh, I'm gonna get third place, but then I'm gonna get first place." That's the kind of meta that I was playing.
But I'm not saying that there aren't rogue decks that do well at those
Exactly,
things.
though.
However, I'm saying that 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna find that perfectly tuned rogue deck that's gonna beat the meta.
Well, that's the point of meta game, though, is like, if the meta was so figured out that I could have a deck that wins consistent all the time, they would never have anything with bans, they wouldn't care what they print. Like, having a rogue deck is just, there are some people that are spikes that, like, only have fun when they win, and then there's people that just have fun because they want to play the game. I remember times when I would go into an FNM with a different deck, and I would get Wally stomped by. I remember when I played Titan Shift or Escape Shift Valakut for the first time. Like I never saw it before, and I was just like, "Well, that's a really cool combo." I had a blast losing a game of Magic. Because I was going against a deck that I've never seen, saw a bunch of combos come out, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's fantastic!" I remember.
So maybe this comes down to our experience, because whenever I've gone to an FNM and I haven't had a real quote unquote real deck, I have been ridiculed, ostracized, and just destroyed. And on top of that, like, after I lose, they're just like, "What did you expect? You had a trash deck."
Well, I mean, okay, so I've gone to the same community as you, and I've gone to, before I, knew how to get good, I would go into there and I would go like, "I have this," and they go like, "Alright, that's kind of a bad deck." And so what they do is they criticize you and then go like, "Alright, that's a trash card, you need to put this in, you need to put this in, and this is how you're going to make your deck." It's really how you take that criticism. You're going into a community that's probably littered with a few people that aren't very good at social interactions when it comes to being critical. Like, they're going to be critical and they're not going to be very sensitive because they're just talking about Magic cards. And for a person like me, I take that criticism pretty well. I enjoy the constructive criticism that's been given to me, and I take it very well. And that's probably one of the reasons why, like, I just enjoyed that community because, they're very analytical. They're not really concerned with, like, the emotion of it. They're just like, this is how you make your deck more efficient.
I think I just had worse people to interact with than you did.
Maybe.
I would lie because
Maybe.
lie because we've interacted with
Well,
other people.
the experiences I'm talking about was before I ever met you.
Oh, okay, all right.
So
Years and years ago, huh?
that was years and years ago. Before I went to college, before I met you.
The community's changed a lot since then too. So.
And, it's not like I've never been met with the guy that's, called my deck garbage trash and you should never play with it. I usually just kind of laugh them off and then go find another cool person.
Yeah, that's not constructive criticism. That's just being an asshole.
Right, yeah. And I identify that and go like, alright, so you're just not good at talking to people. And then I move on to the next person.
This is why I had such a hard time finding a place that I felt comfortable going to FNM. Because before I met you, I went to a couple places in Grand Rapids. I went to a couple places there was like maybe one or two in like Muskegon area and whatever. And a lot of them not only did like tournament spikes, but you also had actual like owners and judges who would be that guy who's like, "Oh, well, even though you didn't know half of these rules and you're a new player, screw you because this is bent or, you're not playing a good deck, No, they would criticize me because I had the, budget version, if you don't want to spend money to upgrade this deck to a real tournament deck with the cards that we own, then I don't want you here.
He would tell you
Yes.
to that person is just gonna go out of business because
They basically they had a whole floor at F&M of tournament spikes, and they basically just sold them tournament level cards.
All right, I gotta ask you the question though: were they tournament spikes or were they just competitive players?
From my interaction, they were definitely tournament spikes because they were trying to point out any little thing to get me disqualified.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you were with unhealthy.
Yeah.
You were
now this is my first foray into any kind of Magic beyond table, kitchen table. And I'm going in with, I just bought my first booster box which was M11 2011, and I just built a basic dragon deck.
Go ahead.
I built a red dragon deck, which is not competitive, is probably really terrible, but I like dragons. It was M11. It had dragons on the box, which was why I picked it up.
Right.
And I tried to build a dragon deck because that's what I liked.
Uh-huh.
And then I brought it to an F&M with tournament spikes, and they're like, this is garbage trash. You need to do this, this, and this to make it anywhere competitive.
See how they say do this, this, and this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's constructive criticism.
Okay, all right.
Whether you follow it or not is irrelevant.
Right.
But part of
yes,
that
they
was
could have.
you need to buy these cards in this case.
Okay, so they're giving out suggestions, and like I said, they probably weren't the best at giving out those suggestions. And I'm going to go on their side and say I can understand why I wouldn't want someone in my meta group to be playing with super undervalued cards, because it's one thing to have budget versions of a deck. It's another thing to have a deck that's not really competent when it comes to just competitive play or constructed play for that. Because you never, when you want to play the game, you want to play the game. You don't want to play against yourself. It's like, it's like when I played football. I never enjoyed going against someone that was way smaller than me. If I was 240 pounds, I didn't want to be challenged to a guy that's 120 pounds because it's hitting nothing. It's I'm not able to, I'm not playing the game. I'm not competing at a level that's challenging my brain because it's just there's no competition. I need something to compete against.
Right. Here's the problem with those old decks like this. Imagine if I took that old blue deck I made in 1999.
Yeah.
If I took that to a modern tournament today, I'd get laughed at. You got a 3-drop 1/1 that you can tap to deal 1 damage to target creature. That's absurdly underpowered.
Yeah.
Right.
If I played that deck, I'd be lucky if nothing happened to win by turn 20.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. But their deck, even just a crappy modern deck, would win well before turn 10.
Probably turn 4 or 5.
Right, exactly. I have no chance of even competing. I show up and it's, I'm not having fun because your deck's so bad that it's a waste of my time. And I'm not really having fun because I show up and I just immediately get demolished before I can do anything.
When the stat line basis is a 1-mana 1/1 with flying and lifelink versus what?
Before it was the stat line was it was a 1/1 for 1, and that was the best card you were getting.
Right.
A 3-drop was a 1/2 flying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely some power creep going on. But my point in even bringing this up, because we have gotten a little off topic, was I think the flip lands have definitely made a big change
Mm-hmm.
You have also decks like Goblin Charbelcher, who now are way more consistent because they can literally have their lands be spells.
Oh yeah.
Whereas
oh yeah.
Where before they couldn't have those.
Okay, so wait, are the spells the front side or the lands the front side? Because that's important.
It can be either, depending on...
No. There is a front side, and then there's a flip side.
According to, how it's been playing on Magic Online, with Goblin Charbelcher, they're considered lands. But with Martyr of Sands, they were considered the white card.
What?
So maybe it needs to go back to like an Oracle text change of how those are perceived. And that might need to be changed. Because it would kind of lower their power if it was strictly determinative of, yes, if you're doing this kind of effect, it can only be considered this type of card.
Right. So really, the problem doesn't seem to be the flip lands themselves. The flip lands themselves. It's to do with the fact that it's the combination of Martyr of Sands. It's become a little bit abusive, right?
Yes.
So you either have one of two options. You can, as Magic the Gathering, you can now print these kind of cards for all the colors, all the lands. Basically, remove basic lands entirely.
Yeah.
Or what you can do is, like you said, change it that way. So when you play Martyr of Sands, for instance, it would count as a land card. It would be colorless.
Right.
And it would only activate the flip card if you were use it via the rules, right? Mm. So that's the only way I can see it happening. They could leave it like this to continue to see what happens. You will probably see, if this continues, you'll likely see decks prop up just to counter Martyr of Sands, likely.
Right.
I mean, that seems obvious. Because if it becomes that, overpowered, it'll be...
Single try
you'll just try to get decks to counter that deck,
Right. And ironically enough, the biggest challenge to the Martyr of Sands life gain deck, it has been Tron, because Tron just has the speed to get better cards out faster, and has the added addition of being able to run Ugin the Spirit Dragon to literally wipe out their entire combo, their entire board in one drop.
Right.
So that there is some counterplay to it. However, it comes down to Tron being able to get a very specific threat down by turn 3 or 4. So, it's back and forth, so it's definitely more of an even matchup. But if that's their counter...
What if an effect instructs a player to choose a card name, the name of either face may be chosen?
I told you.
If that effect or a linked ability refers to a spell with the chosen name being cast and or a land with the chosen name being played, it considered only the chosen name, not the other face's name. In the Commander variant, a double face card's color identity is determined by the mana cost and mana symbols of the rules text of both faces combined. If either face has a color indicator or basic land type, those are also considered.
I told you.
Okay, wait. Okay, no, that's the Commander format. Okay, so in Commander, it is both a land and a sorcery. Or the Seagate Reborn is the example I'm looking at. So if it says look for a non-land, this is a land, even though it might be a sorcery. That's still kind of sus.
So yeah, like I said, there's something will have to change.
Yeah, they're gonna have to do something with the rules if it's breaking that. But that's just,
That was kind of part of what I wanted to discuss here, is I feel like that choice of making it be available of both sides is not the most healthy for any format.
Yeah, it's that you can choose it it can be chosen as a land or a sorcery.
Or
It doesn't have a front side or a back side. It just has both sides. That's the problem. It's like, what is it? Is it a land or a sorcerer? Well, it's both. Or it's one or the other. It's just, it's got to be...
When you get to choose, that becomes the power.
If I, Sylvan Scry up a land, it's a problem when that's also a spell.
Yeah, because
that's what I really want to know.
Let's Sylvan Scry up a land that is also a board wipe that I needed for, wiping out the elves that I'm fighting against.
Right.
Which in itself might not be the broken part, but there's obviously shenanigans in there that may not have been intended.
It makes any kind of tutor that is strictly says land or strictly says creature or spell a lot easier to abuse.
Yeah.
Right, but that also could be an interesting shakeup, like you were talking about meta before. If you can now experiment, you've got all these cards, especially looking at modern, once it falls into the category, you can look at all these cards saying, hey, I can now make all different kinds of decks. The top tier decks might not be the top tier decks anymore.
Right.
You might very well have a change up.
See, the only problem with it comes to modern is I feel like these lands are actually more made for Pioneer, because that's going to be that's Wizards of the Coast's new Eternal format. They've already been talking about how they print cards for Standard and not necessarily Modern, even though they have been a little cautious, I guess. But now that Pioneer is kind of right there on the doorstep, and Historic as well, they can care less about Modern. So if it's a Charbelcher from a Modern deck, it's like they're going to finagle some rules or whatever, but it's not really their concern. Again, we don't want Modern to become an unhealthy format, which, I'll be honest, I haven't really checked at it very lately. Last time I played, I think they were still banning Uro and Phoenix and Faithless Looting. Not Uro, Urgat.
Hogak.
Hogak, when Horizons was out.
So it's still not a terrible format, because I can still play with experimental decks and still get some decent win percentages. So it's still fairly out there. You can still bring some creativity to it.
Yeah, no. When Saffron Olive made that Artifact Blast deck.
Oh, I loved it.
It was what, $20?
Yes.
$20 and this dude's dealing out 10, 12 damage in a turn. He's like, all I have to do is bring him down 10 damage. I'll have the rest of the damage in my hand. I was just like, yeah.
And immediately after he played it, all those cards went up in value, and that deck went from $20 to about $50.
Yeah, but still, hey, 50's pretty cheap still.
I'm not saying it's not.
Kind of competitive.
But yeah, that gets to the point of when you take a rogue deck and then put it out there as, this is good. People listen.
It's fun, is what it is. As people when you say good, you just mean that it can be played in a constructed format, meaning that somebody put 3 brain cells behind it and go this is functional. And you can get some nice jank wins off of it. Maybe you can be consistent, because really, that's really the test to see if
you want to know how that
modern deck is good is how consistently can it win. That's the thing. You
want to know what the win condition for that Martyr proc deck is?
What?
Angel of Destiny.
Keith, what's Angel?
Is that the one that gets bonus stats when you get above, was it 30 life?
No. That is a different one. It's I can't remember what it is, but Angel of Destinies is actually was printed with the flip lands. It says that if at the end step of your or the end of your turn you have 15 or more than your starting life total, you win the game.
Okay. So exactly what it is. It's a 5-drop 2/6 with flying and double strike. Whenever this creature deals damage or combat damage to a player, you and that player each gain that much life. At the beginning of your end step, if you have at least 15 life more than your starting life total, each player Angel of Destiny attacked this turn loses the game.
Yes.
So it's not and it's not you winning the game, it's them losing the game.
Which is only important for Commander, really.
Yes.
Yes.
Or two
It's
was it
basically
two-headed
so you
giant?
win the game. Actually, wow. Actually, I need a. If you have a prismatic angel, is that the you can't lose the game?
Platinum Angel.
Platinum Angel. Okay, so if I have a Platinum Angel out and you have a card that says you win the game, do you actually win the game? Because I can't.
Platinum
lose.
Angel says you can't lose the game.
Right.
Right.
So.
But if somebody can win the game, then you automatically. Like, does that work?
I have no
Can
idea.
you get around Platinum Angel by winning the game?
I have no idea on the rules text on that.
Oh my gosh.
It might be in the Gatherer.
Well, technically, yes, because if
Rulings.
whoever has the Platinum Angel could win the game.
No.
'Cause-
Who doesn't have?
I'm aware. So that's how you get around it in the first place. So
Yeah.
them winning it, I don't
They
know.
win, you lose.
But if Platinum
Because you
Angel
didn't
says
win.
It's a paradox.
lose.
So I don't know. That's something that'd be interesting to find out.
We need the rules. If you know this, you should also
Comment on the video.
Yeah, do it, please. Please, we're bad at this, man. Effects that say the game is a draw, such as the Legends card, Divine Intervention, are not affected by Platinum Angel. They'll still work.
Oh, okay.
You can concede a game without Platinum. Dang it!
Oh.
Well,
You can so you can legally concede the game when you have a Platinum Angel.
yeah.
No game effect can cause you to lose a game or cause any opponent to win the game while you control Platinum Angel. Oh, okay, all right. So that's clear.
So they would still have to get rid of Platinum Angel, which you could still defeat Platinum Angel with your.
No, because you can't. I'm not gonna block.
Need something like a path or a.
Let me block with my Platinum Angel.
Yeah.